It's time for another ARC book review, and this time it is Take All of Us by Natalie Leif. This book takes place in a small West Virginia town that about 5-ish years prior to the start of the book, individuals who died didn't stay quite dead. They came back not in a I'm going to eat your brains type way, just in a still living, and slowly over time their bodies and their brains would kind of go to mush. And they would just kind of repeat their same actions over and over again until, quote unquote, someone was nice enough to take them out back and lay them to rest. So about 5 years ago, this started in this small West Virginia town. The government came through. They were like, we think it's a parasite or something in the water. Here's some money for water filters. Don't drink water from, that isn't filtered, and get your food like from the city. So obviously this does kind of cause a bit of a class system in this town, because the people who are wealthier and can afford all of that are going to die naturally, whereas the poorer people are going to unfortunately come back after their death. So in this book, we follow specifically Ian. It's all written through his perspective. Now, Ian is a young boy who has epilepsy, and he is best friends with Eric. He meets up with Eric to basically officially confess his feelings to Eric. Unfortunately, before he can do that, an emergency alert alarm starts going off with loud noises and bright sounds and flashing lights, and we know what happens to an epileptic if they have that. So unfortunately, Ian falls backward into a fountain, cracks his head, and is now part of the undead. Eric pulls him out of the fountain and runs off. So Ian wakes up in the mall, realizes he's part of this undead, and wants to go find Eric to, one, see what's going on, what happened with this whole evacuation, make sure Eric is okay, but also to figure out what exactly happened and why did Eric run away. So Ian is joined on his adventure by Monica and Angel. Monica is another individual in this town who deals with a chronic childhood illness. We're never exactly specifically told what hers is. We just know that it does involve chronic pain and gait mobility issues. She does walk with a cane. And so her and Ian has always kind of felt like he was in competition with her for being the most sick kid. One of those, things that as a young adult you make up in your head. Angel is basically an end of the world prepper. You find out slowly through the book that her father, it's never explicitly said, but more than likely has paranoid schizophrenia, took Angel off the grid and taught her how to survive when, the world ended. So both Angel and Monica are very well prepared. They have a list, they've got supplies, and they meet up with Ian, and they decide that they are going to help Ian not only find Eric, but also to hopefully for all of them to figure out what happened in their town, why it was evacuated, and if there's anybody left in there. So while this trio is kind of going on this little adventure, we also have Eric. We don't get anybody else's perspective, like I said, other than Ian's. But Eric has met up with some girl named Zoe. Now, Zoe, her older sister, became one of the undead. She thoroughly dislikes them. Eric is on a mission to find Ian to mercy kill him. He is horrified that he ran away, that he left Ian alone, and he wants to basically mercy kill Ian to let Ian pass into the next life. At a certain point, these groups do come together, and then once they do, it is a massive adventure where they try to not only keep Ian alive and where he is and with his memories, but also still figure out what is going on with their town, what caused this evacuation, and really what actually caused 5 years ago for this whole undead thing to start. This book really hits on a lot of themes. We hit with a lot of trauma in this book, specifically like Ian and Monica with, their trauma of being children and young children and going to the hospital and being poked and prodded. They have a lot of trauma around that and PTSD. We see that in a scene where they have to go to the hospital because they're looking for Monica's mother, and they both kind of each have their own issue going into the hospital because of really bad memories. We have Angel, who's very quiet, and she just kind of caves in on herself quite a bit. We're never explicitly told if she is abused by her father, but I'm sure there was a level of abuse that she endured, being so cut off from everybody. We have Eric, whose father was physically abusive of him, he really struggles. He feels like he is not good enough. He's never been good enough. His self-esteem is incredibly low. He feels like he failed Ian and really struggles with that. And then we have Zoe, who's just very jaded. She is so jaded after the death of her sister twice, and she just does not, she does not want to be around the dead. She doesn't want to deal with it. She's incredibly jaded. These kids are also mostly, a lot of them are dealing with, specifically Ian, Monica, and Angel. And I guess kind of to an extent the other two, but they're also dealing with the issue that they were left behind. Especially Monica and Ian. They feel like they were left behind because they have these disabilities that slow them down. So the survival of the fittest comes up a lot in this book, of, you know, in an end of the world situation, those individuals who have some sort of a disability, whether it be physical or mental or anything like that, are going to be the ones left behind, and they have to fend for themselves. So they all kind of deal with this in their own way. There's a lot of character growth for all of these kids as the book goes on. A lot of them, you know, really trying to figure out, you know, how to deal with their own feelings of being left in this town all alone with no adults, and everybody having just basically left and not really caring what happened to them. I will say this book was amazing. I read it in one sitting. It definitely really is hard to read at certain points, especially because, again, you're getting it all through Ian's perspective. And at this point, he is part of that undead population. So he understands that, like, the time that he is having right now is very limited. He knows that at some point he's going to start, like, losing his memories. His body is currently rotting while they're driving around. So he is having to deal with the fact that he is dead, and how is he going to handle his actual permanent death, you know? And he's also struggling that he went from just having to worry about, you know, his mom, dad, and sister mourning and Eric mourning, to now he's like developed these other group of friends that he's now leaving behind. So death and mourning and grief are really prominent in this book. And I think the way that Natalie handles it is really well done. I think the way she handled not only that aspect, but the disability aspect, the thought of being left alone, I think she handles it all beautifully well and puts it in such a way that, you know, you can really connect with all the characters and all of their struggles. So Take All of Us, by Natalie Leif, comes out June 4th. I think this is a wonderful book. Like I said, I was riveted the whole time, couldn't put it down. It really touches on a lot of really tough topics with this kind of like fantasy, supernatural type, you know, theme overarching it. We do have undead people, but like I said, they are not the eat your brains type dead people. They are just, you know, people who died, woke up, and continued their life until they officially died again. So I think this book is amazing. I think it's wonderful, and I really think everyone should add it to their TBR.